Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Laura. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. Today's episode is I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, launching my new book to the world. Today, January 13th, 2026, is the day of my book releasing, and it has been a labor of love. I'm excited to share with you my journey about why I wrote a book on toxic bosses, what you can expect from the book, and how you can get the book to support the movement to stop toxic bosses and to help those who are suffering under the clutches of a toxic boss. So let's begin with my book. And for those of you on YouTube, I'm holding up the cover. I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, Practical Strategies for Navigating and Escaping a Toxic Boss. And you'll see on the front of the book a bird cage and a beautiful, colorful bird flying off into the distance, escaping out of this cage. Now, this is a very symbolic cover for me because the more and more people I work with and have worked with who have escaped a toxic boss, they always say that life is better on the other side and they wish they had quit sooner, which is why I titled the book as such. And the cage on the book almost looks cartoon-ish. And I remember the graphic designer going back and forth with me and thinking maybe I need it to look more real metal. But in fact, it's actually symbolic because it's not really a cage that you're trapped in. You feel you're trapped in it, but once you get out, you realize that life is better on the other side. And that cage was not made of metal. It was made of paper, and you could have broken through it sooner. You did what you could and did at the time with the information you had. So there's no feeling guilty. There's no resentment. But what I want to do is help people to get out sooner. So a little bit about why this book, and I get asked that a lot. Why focus on such a dark topic? Well, I like shining a light on dark topics in this world because I think this world can be quite tricky, but quite beautiful at the same time. But one of the trickiest things people do go through in their careers is working for a toxic boss. My career's at about the 25-year mark. And I'd say in my 25 years, I've suffered under a couple of toxic bosses myself. And I've been an entrepreneur for over 16 years of it. So you can see that people do suffer from more than one. And it's really hard when you do. And having been through it myself, and I talk about those experiences in my book, having been through it, I can really empathize and relate to how unraveling that is, how horrible it is, how much sleep I lost over it at the time. And I want to help others through that and to shorten the suffering and escape sooner. So why the topic now? Well, I've run a company called Canada Career Counseling for 16 years now, and the team of psychologists who specialize in career development have helped thousands of people. And over the years, a number of our clients come through who are suffering under a toxic boss. I noticed post-pandemic an increase in toxic workplace cultures and people coming to us struggling under a toxic boss. And I was noticing this trend going on. And why the trend? Well, I think the trend has to do with fear. An uncertain economic situation can bring out the worst in people. Fear of layoffs can make people's behaviors become more and more difficult. And I think a lot of organizations are really, really focused on productivity, performance, and profit, which, I mean, is super key to the businesses. Without those things, you're not going to survive as an organization. However, they've focused on those things to the detriment of investing in, paying attention to, and valuing their people, their human beings. So I always say profit and performance needs to be just as important as people. They need to be balanced on a scale. And when you focus only and solely on quarter by quarter profits and shareholder value and things like that without investing in your people, without genuinely making sure you have great people leaders who are promoted into those very important and delicate roles. Delicate meaning managing humans isn't easy. It's full of curveballs and gray zones and areas where It puts you to the test. It puts your patience to the test. It puts your empathy to the test. And it puts your courage to the test, because managing people needs constructive feedback. It needs the courage to know when that person is not a fit, when that person is harming other people, when that person is taking away from your culture, the courage to set them free back into the universe of work, to do something that is better suited for them, or to move them into a role where they are not causing an impact on other humans, a negative impact. So that's a little bit about the context. So more and more toxic workplaces lead to more and more toxic leaders. I call them toxic bosses because they are not leaders. They are bosses. A leader is someone who motivates, inspires, helps people grow. A toxic boss does the opposite of that. They harm people. They either harm people covertly or overtly. So overt behaviors of a toxic boss are the things that come across in front of us, like yelling, bullying, harassment, those things that we can see and they're in our faces. Then the covert ways of harming people are underhanded, manipulative, secretive, and those include things like gaslighting that we can't really put our finger on it, but it is going on, and dishonest manipulation, ethical issues like corruption. So those are all things that can be going on under the surface. Anyway, I decided to do a research project looking at the behaviors and impacts of toxic bosses in North America. I had a wonderful research assistant who's still working with me, Renee Pye, and we looked at what is going on with toxic leaders across different industries through the lens of the people who have reported to them and who formerly reported to these toxic bosses. And we did 20 in-depth interviews, had hundreds of pieces of data, and I was able to look at the data specifically for this book by looking at the 8 personas of a toxic boss. What are the behaviors and how do they come across and what do they do? And there wasn't a lot of research on this topic, especially post-pandemic and especially in North America. There was research done overseas, but we wanted to look at North America specifically, what's going on in Canada and the US, and what might have changed since this whole dawn of remote work and post-pandemic and the advent of AI. All these things are going on and workplaces are evolving. So how has toxic leadership evolved along with it? So I started writing this book. It's been a labor of love over the last couple of years. I found an amazing book coach and editor to help me get it done, because as a business leader, a volunteer, a mother of 3, a dog owner, whatever else I do, I did not have time to write a book. But with deadlines and just chunking it up into, okay, I have deadlines and I can do one chapter at a time, and, I can chisel away at this thing. Some weeks are better than others, but I can chip away at this labor of love. And Susie Vadori, my amazing book coach and editor, helped me get it to where it is today by helping to frame it in a way that would work for people and be an interesting, engaging, and not too academic of a read. As an academic on the side, I'm an adjunct professor of psychology at the University of Calgary. I can get really academic. I wrote a thesis. Behind me, for those of you on YouTube, there's rows of blue. Those are the dissertation I wrote, the master's thesis. Those are really, really detailed documents with tons of research. And this book is based on research, and it does have citations, but it has practical experience from my 25 years of working with people. It has my story. It has other people's stories that I've taken from these different client experiences, anonymized, of course, and my research participants who all gave me permission to be in this book, anonymized, because we know this is a delicate topic, and the last thing we'd want to do is put someone at harm's way of being discovered, because toxic bosses can do harm after the fact. So my dedication in this book, I dedicate this book to all the resilient humans who participated in this impactful research. I admire their courage to leave a toxic boss and their generosity to share their experiences to help others do the same. So that's who I dedicated it to, and it's filled with their real stories of going through this, of exiting, whether they were let go, whether they quit, whether they filed a claim with HR or with legal, whether they filed a formal complaint with HR, whether they decided to take up a legal case after, whether they didn't. I have all of these different stories in here. And the way the book is laid out is it's in 3 parts. And part 1 is suffering under a toxic boss. So, you're working for a toxic boss. You're not alone. That's chapter 1. And I really get into the fact that there are a lot of toxic bosses out there. If you ask your loved ones, your friends, your network, most people have reported to one. 87%, in fact, is what the data say, have encountered a toxic boss in their careers that do damage. If left unchecked, if you stay under them, they will continue to do damage to your mental and physical health over time. So I wanted people to know the emotional and physical pain these bosses cause and to be able to assess that in themselves. And sometimes it takes a while to take effect. A lot of toxic bosses go through a honeymoon period where they are just great. Everything's going fine in the first few months until it's not, until it starts going downhill. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of parallels between toxic bosses and toxic partners in a romantic relationship. Starts off good, goes bad, gets worse. Our self-esteem is challenged. Our self-confidence goes down, and they suck our energy. And then it's hard to get out. You feel trapped, oftentimes financially trapped by a toxic boss. Chapter 2 is what type of toxic boss do you have? And I go through my 8 personas that came from the research. And these personas are fascinating. The self-serving egomaniac, the control freak, the dishonest manipulator, the gaslighter, the great divider, etc. I'm not going to give them all away here, which is why you need to get your hands on this book. And I'll just do a little plug for the book. It's available on all the platforms you can imagine. And it is also on my website are the platforms you can order it from. You can't order it from my website, but you can hop onto all these platforms if you go to Dr. Laura, DRLAURA, .live, LIVE /new book. So new book. That's the landing page. And if you just go to drlaura.live, you'll see that tab on the top called new book. And there's all the places you can order it, including Audible. So the book is an ebook. It's a soft cover and it's on Audible and other platforms as well for audiobook. It's all over the place. I wish I'd quit sooner, and I would love your support with buying the book, buying it for a friend, buying it for a loved one, someone who is suffering under a toxic boss or has left and is still talking about it. And you might think, wow, that was 2 years ago. You're still talking about that toxic boss? Yes, because it's a form of trauma. It stays with people. It freaks them out about ever trusting a boss again. And it can be a long-term healing process. So this book is useful even a year or 2 or more after the fact. So section 2 of the book, or part 2, is Should I Stay or Should I Go? I named it after a song. And this section is all about choice matters, considering your options. And I talk about the 6 different options that people have when they're dealing with a toxic boss. People often feel they have 2 choices: to quit, which is they don't usually see that as a choice, and then to stay and to grin and bear it. That's not a healthy choice, but I have stick it out for now as a choice. And I have tools and resources and boundary setting and things that you can do and why some of them work and why some of them don't. And then I have 5 other options that go into depth about your different scenarios, as well as real life stories from people who have gone through each of those in my book. And then I have chapter 4, creating a winning exit plan. And an exit plan is how are you going to move towards getting out from under that toxic boss, which can mean moving within the organization or moving to another job or even becoming an entrepreneur. We have different avenues for that. And the exit plan includes a GR date, which is a good riddance date. And I write about that concept that I came up with to really give people a chance to control the situation, even if it's a date that's further out, it's a date that you're committing to yourself. If you have to repivot or reschedule that date, you can, but it's really important to work towards that date as if it's a deadline. And I get into all of that very practical, very, very practical suggestions. Chapter 5 is when your toxic boss decides for you. That's when they let you go. And even though you may see it coming, a lot of people are totally shocked when it happens. It's a nasty experience. However, I do know that a lot of people tell me after the fact that I'm so glad it happened. It was a gift from the universe to be set free, although at the time it broke my heart. And at Canada Career Counseling, we see a lot of people who are outplaced and going through career transition, and they are in tears. They feel so betrayed, and it is a really tough betrayal experience. It's grief, it's heartache, whatever you want to call it, but they do get through it and they end up somewhere that's healthier, doing something they want to do more, and the grass is greener. And they quite often say, I'm glad that happened. And that will be you too if this happens to you. A whole chapter on navigating, though, navigating through when you're let go, because it is such a shock. Part 3 of the book is Life Beyond a Toxic Boss. I talk about recovering from a toxic boss in chapter 6, and I have a whole recovery buffet from starters to main course to desserts, all the different things you can do for your recovery. I have Dr. Laura's coaching breaks throughout this section and throughout the whole book to give you questions, to give you checklists, activities to do to really dive into your own toxic boss escape and healing journey. Chapter 7 is Never Again, the warning signs of a toxic boss. So how to spot a toxic workplace culture, how to spot your next toxic boss so you can avoid working for them before you accept the offer. A lot of people are worried about this. They never want to go through it again. So I have some real tangible tips in that regard. Chapter 8 is Thriving in Your Career Post-Toxic Boss. And it's about You Inc., which is you are the CEO of your own career. Let's get you back into that driver's seat so that you can once again be in control. And we talk all about that and the go forward plan with making your career thrive, thriving in your life. And that's what I've specialized in, career psychology, for my whole career. And I have some really uplifting, inspiring nuggets and stories from toxic boss survivors who are thriving and doing well now. And then the book has loads of resources. I've linked the best resources that I could find here to help you dig deeper, and podcast episodes and articles and all kinds of goodies and networks you can become a part of, all different things. And I know different things work for different people. So I wanted to include some really tangible, helpful resources because in the end, I want to shine a light on this issue and I want to help people to get through it. And my other mission is to help organizations eradicate this issue. And it is not easy. It is tricky. I've chosen a tricky area because people say, hey, Laura, am I a toxic boss? No, you're not, because people who are toxic bosses do not acknowledge that. They do not ask that question because they feel they are not, and they don't have self-insight, and their egos are massive, making it very difficult to take any ownership or accountability over the fact that they might be. And quite often they can be intelligent, hardworking people that climb their way up the corporate ladder, and then they might be at the top even or in a senior role. Makes it difficult to get rid of them. And it puts HR, our good friends in HR, in a really awkward, difficult situation. So I'm trying to navigate that with partners, collaborators, other researchers. So doing it with a research in organizational psychology. I'm continuing research projects around this topic, as well as in the real world of consulting around it and trying to make a difference. I'm also speaking to HR audiences, speaking at industry events, speaking at whistleblowing events and conferences, really trying to work with lawyers, work with HR leaders, work to figure out how the heck we eradicate this problem, because it is hashtag stop toxic bosses. It is a movement that it's killing people. It's killing people. And like the Me Too movement, a formidable movement that I really admire how that all started, I think that the toxic boss movement is important as well, because a lot of people say, me too, I had a toxic boss too, when you ask them. And these should have no place in people leadership. A toxic boss does not belong in people leadership. Maybe they can do other things for the world. I mean, they're smart, they're brilliant people at times, but as people leaders, no. And a toxic boss does not get better over time. A difficult boss, yes. And this is highlighted in the introduction of my book. I talk about the difference between a difficult versus toxic boss, because there are a lot of difficult bosses and they can be developed and you can learn to work with them. They do not intend to cause harm and they are willing to take some accountability. That's the biggest difference. They would be horrified if they knew they were causing physical and mental health impacts to people. A toxic boss, they would blame it on the people. They would say those people are weak, they're too soft, or they don't have enough resilience, or they're really good at turning it around and flipping it onto the people. So, without further ado, I want to conclude by saying I Wish I'd Quit Sooner is launched into the world. It's going to be available in other languages as well, so stay tuned for that. I'm really hoping it gets picked up across the world, because no one country or industry or gender or socioeconomic status, no one is immune. Toxic bosses impact every part of society, and we need to understand this phenomena, and we need to help eradicate it and to help people recover and know they're not alone, and there is a way to get out of this, to navigate and to escape a toxic boss and to recover and heal from it. So that is my mission, to stop toxic bosses. And again, I hope you order multiple copies for people you love, and that you review the book if you like it. Amazon reviews, Goodreads reviews, they all go a long way in helping me. On any of your book platforms, a review is like gold to an author. And I really want this book to go big, because I want to help as many humans as possible across the world. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support with I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, and I hope you all stay well. Thank you for tuning in to Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate, review, and share with others who may benefit. If you're struggling in your work life and need support, I offer coaching sessions. You can book a complimentary consult on my website. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would love to discuss your professional speaking needs. Visit my website, drlaura.live, to sign up for my monthly e-newsletter filled with tips and resources to help you stay well.